I was thinking about something earlier. Actually, I don't know if thinking is quite the right word. It was more that I noticed it. You know how there are some things that become so ordinary that they almost disappear. They're happening all the time. And because they're happening all the time, they're strangely easy to miss. And one of those things is deciding. Not the big decisions. People notice those. I'm talking about the tiny ones. The ones that don't seem important enough to remember. Whether to get up now or in another minute. Whether to check your phone or ignore it. Whether to answer that message. Whether to make coffee first or shower first. Whether to wear this or that. Tiny things, almost forgettable. And yet, I sometimes wonder how many decisions a person makes before they've even left the house. Hundreds, perhaps, maybe more. I don't actually know, but it feels like a lot. And it's curious, because no single decision is especially heavy. No one ever says, I'm exhausted because I chose what socks to wear. And that would sound quite ridiculous. And yet, somehow, the mind can become tired anyway. Not because one thing was difficult, but because there were simply so many things. One after another, after another. And perhaps you've had days like that, or perhaps not at all, or perhaps not today, maybe yesterday, maybe last week, or maybe you're remembering someone else entirely. It doesn't really matter. The observation still seems interesting. That a mind can spend an entire day quietly organizing the world, without anyone ever noticing the effort involved. Which made me wonder about something else. What would happen if, for just a little while, there wasn't anything to decide? Not forever, just long enough to remember what that feels like. Because opportunities like that are surprisingly rare. You'll probably notice that even now, the room isn't asking very much of you. Actually, it isn't asking anything at all. The chair, or the bed, or wherever you've decided to be, made no demands before it agreed to support you. It simply supports you. And the floor isn't wondering whether you've earned the right to stand on it. Gravity isn't checking whether you've completed today's list. Those things have already made up their minds long before either of us arrived here. And I rather like that thought because it means that for a few moments, something in your world is already taken care of. Not by effort, not by achievement, simply because that's the nature of the world. You may have noticed your breathing already, or perhaps you only became aware of it when I mentioned it. That's always interesting, how something can be happening perfectly without needing your attention at all. Breath arrives, leaves, returns. It seems remarkably comfortable, doing its own thing. And thoughts can be like that too. People often imagine they need to stop thinking. I've never been entirely convinced. Thoughts seem rather good at thinking. It's what they do. Perhaps a more interesting question is whether every thought deserves to be followed, because they're rather like people calling your name across a crowded street. Some matter, some don't. Some can wait until later. I wonder whether you've ever put a book down, knowing exactly where it was, not because you'd finished it, simply because you intended to come back. The story didn't disappear. It just waited. And unfinished thoughts can sometimes be a little like that. They don't always need solving immediately. Sometimes they're simply waiting for the right version of you to return. So perhaps, just for these few moments, nothing needs to be chased. Nothing needs to be organized. Nothing needs to become clearer if clarity arrives. That's lovely. If it doesn't, that's perfectly interesting too. There may be sounds around you, a distant car, someone walking somewhere, and the quiet hum of a room simply existing. It's rather reassuring, really. The world seems perfectly capable of continuing without asking anything from you for these few moments. And perhaps that's the thing I wanted to share. Not that life becomes lighter. That would be too simple. Life is wonderfully complicated. It always has been. But sometimes the weight isn't created by the size of what we are carrying. Sometimes it's simply what we've forgotten, what it feels like to put something down, even briefly. So if, at some point, you notice yourself taking one slower breath, or feeling as though the next decision doesn't have to be made quite yet, then perhaps that's enough. Or perhaps you'll notice nothing at all until much later. Minds have their own curious sense of timing. I've learned not to rush them. And whenever you decide this moment has reached its natural ending, you can allow your eyes to open, stretch if it feels pleasant, and continue with the rest of your day. The emails will still be there. The conversations, the shopping lists, the plans. They've all been surprisingly patient. Perhaps they can wait for one more breath. Nothing more is required of you for now.